All right, and we're live. Finally. God. Okay, so after 20 minutes of technical crap with Google Plus, we're good. Okay, so here's the TC meeting. Let me do a quick breakdown of last meeting. So we had an update on the reconciliation from me and Bert. We'll have more on that later. We added a NAN working group. We authorized Jeremiah to do releases. We talked about the raising the bar for the membership and governance policy, but we actually put it on the back burner and maybe like doing a new PR and pretty soon. Rod Veg got voted into the TSC or TC. So we're all good. All right, time for a quick stand up. Let's start with Ben.
Hey, I did most of the usual, so fixing bugs, reviewing pull requests. I looked into adding generator.return in V8, which turned out to be more complicated than I expected. Apart from that, there's nothing really to report. But
Hello. I forgot everything I did. One of the things I did do is build a mockup. Well, like actually fix an old mockup and make it work for a really cool CI status dashboard that will hopefully help us get to more greens more often. I cannot show it right now. I'll do it maybe at the end of the stand-up because I have to figure out how to start Chrome without web security and keep Google Hangouts open. And other than that, I don't know. Oh, Ben, like if you want to tell us what the problem is with adding that return.
well, the problem right now is that it crashes, and I can't quite figure out why.
Oh, okay.
You should probably just share it with me. I think we could figure it out.
Yeah, well, it's not that important, but I thought it would be nice to have a complete generate implementation. But yeah, if you want to take a look, I'll commit what I have.
Yeah,
I'm certainly interested. Yeah, thank you.
Oh, and I was just reviewing a patch, by the way, that makes Node use Chakra instead of V8. Now, well, that is a really interesting thing, but more about that maybe later. The next person would be Chris.
Hey, so worked on a patch to add a UTF-8 consumer to utils for the purposes of eventually adding UTF-8 validation as well as being able to externalize buffer strings. Other than that, talked with Macintosh in the streams repository about maybe standardizing destroy behavior in streams. And got into some graphing stuff on that. I believe next is Dominic.
All right. Not too much directly on IO. Just I guess reviewing some of the stability and policies and things like that, especially with regards to V8. That's it for me.
I guess I'm next. I was fixing bugs, reviewing some pull requests, and I don't think that I did much more than this. So the next is Jeremiah, I guess.
I've been just managing issues and reviewing some pull requests mostly, and I did the release, the 1.6.4.
Hooray!
I'll go next, or is it Trevor? I can't tell.
It's my.
Okay. So yeah, I've been I worked on the dev policy for the foundation, like for a merge project, and then now just like continuing to iterate on it and go over all the changes that James is making, and also that thread that we had, the thread that we opened about like people that were worried about reconciliation. We had some really good feedback, so I've been like distilling that into various forms for different places. And then it kind of spiraled out of control and just became like people yelling at each other. So I locked it and with like 4 links to other places where people can address that stuff. And a lot of people have actually. So now we have like some good feedback from them on both the dev policy and the TSC charter. And that's it. Trevor.
I just related mainly reading over patches and commenting. I think that's all I've been doing strictly io.js related this last week.
Cool. Okay. All right. So let's get into the agenda. Oh, fuck. Sorry. Gestures. Okay. So pull request 1101 allow HTTP to return an HTTPS server from Silverwind. The use of a TLS option to trigger HTTPS module functionality. Who's been working on this one the most?
I suppose it might be me. So like
Okay.
the two options we kind of have for that, if we want to have HTTP return an HTTPS server that we've currently kind of laid out and discussed, are either to have a TLS option that you have to use that in order to be able to specify extra TLS options for it to create an HTTPS instance, or you just have it auto-detect, like if you provide HTTPS options to it, it'll make an HTTPS server instead of an HTTP one.
I'm +1 for explicit. Same.
Why does the TC need to decide on this? Isn't that something that just can be, can't consensus be reached on the issue itself?
So far it hasn't been.
Okay, but how long has this been playing out?
A few weeks, right?
I think
Yeah, what are the arguments against it?
3 or 4 weeks. Well, I think it's more like a decision that needs to be made. So there's 2 possible suggestions that were made. Like either if you pass an object to http.create server, and if it detects certain TLS options in there, it will also support HTTPS. Or there's people, and I'm actually one like in that camp, where you have to be explicit and ask for a HTTPS server, because I think it's like too much.
Wait, so are you saying in the first option you would get both HTTP and HTTPS?
I don't think that's being discussed. That would be
Okay.
interesting.
No, that would be bad. We don't want more HTTP servers.
No, it will only be one or the other.
Okay, just checking.
Well, so we have another thread in NG about this. I think it might be caught up in some of the HTTP2 stuff, but one of the things that got brought up was, can we just have a single module and a single return value for HTTP server? And I think one of the directions that we actually ended up going was that rather than pass options to server create for the TLS, you would pass them to listen, so that you could have a single server listening on 2 ports with 2 different TLS options, as well as listening on plain, right?
I'm just really curious. I'm curious why somebody can't implement this in a user, like this is easily something done in a user-line module. Why is it implemented there and then brought for proposal? Why are we discussing the actual implementation here in the TC?
It's also been landed in Joyent node, so it's adopting it out of V12, I do believe.
Yeah, I don't think this is like a big feature, so I mean in some sense, so I'm not sure it's like controversial or something that needs to get pushed into user land. It's more just like we awkwardly made the wrong decision long ago to separate these, so now let's try and fix that. That's my take.
Looking at the PRs, it has not actually been merged into Joyent/node.
Oh yeah, I was about to say I misspoke there. I thought it was, but no. Originally, Colin was championing it over there.
Well, personally, I don't think that this is a much big problem. So, in my mind, the bigger problem is HTTP.request because you need to specify the module ahead of time, and in some situations you just don't know which protocol is going to be used in URL, and so users basically in many of the cases where they don't know the URL ahead of time, they're using just some modules that wrap both HTTP and HTTPS and decide on them using the scheme. I think, I don't know, it's not the original question, but anyway, I think that's the original question is probably not worth fixing to me, and the bigger issue is HTTP requests.
I think this would be the first step, and then we'd fix HTTP requests next, right?
No, that's not necessarily, because if we end up going down a route where we abstract everything completely, then you probably would want to put this around listen rather than around the instantiation. Because it's silly to like HTTP servers can listen on multiple ports, and so can TLS. But with TLS, like you actually want to be able to do different options in each one.
I'm -1 on doing all that crazy crap in .listen. Well, simply because we're already doing so much of that, and like internally, it's a pain to keep track of stuff. When you call .listen, for example, like with the async handle stuff or async wrap stuff, the fact that you're not notified of it till you call .listen instead of when you say create server, which is unlike any other API in core, right?
Even more than this, it would be much more harder to share the server socket between the workers in the cluster. So if it was previously sending just one file descriptor, it will need to implicitly send multiple of them. So it's kind of overshoot for the problem that to me doesn't seem to exist. So I agree on this with Trevor.
I think this particular PR is actually pretty simple, though, right? Like it's just basically reducing the cognitive overhead for consumers. My interpretation of the agenda item was just like, which API style do you like? And it seems like there's at least a slight preference towards explicit.
Well, if you're making it explicit instead of implicit, then what's the difference? Like, I mean, I guess you get out of a different module import, but you're still doing.
So you're doing HTTP. Yeah, exactly. I guess you're doing the HTTP module. You don't have to, when you're creating your server, you don't need to worry, do I use the HTTP or the HTTPS module?
I don't know. Actually, I think it's pretty obvious that we're going to punt on this issue. But I have a strong feeling for that suggestion to put it in listen, actually, because we already, like, it seems logical to specify all the options in one place, basically. And what listen currently does is it basically specifies, you created the server, but actually what you create is a request handler, and then when you call listen, you specify like what the actual protocol will be, what type of socket, etc. And so it makes sense to add in listen. So I don't know, it's an interesting suggestion. So probably we should punt.
That makes sense. I mean, it sounds like that really wasn't considered. So our feedback to the thread, somebody will write it up, should be, if we were to do it this way, we would prefer explicit. However, actually, we think you should start taking a hard look at putting it in listen, and we should have that discussion.
So I mean, that would at least be my feedback. If other people disagree, it's of course fine. But all right.
Oh yeah, Ben just had a good point, which is what happens when it's compiled without TLS support. We have to think about that too. Okay, so we're gonna punt on this. We'll put the comments in there. Next PR is 1301. util.is star deprecations. So Jeremiah, you want to take that?
So basically, I made this PR as a proof of concept of deprecating the util is functions, since there'd been a lot of discussion about that, and just generally stuff about that isn't finalized if we actually want to do that, if that's the path we want to take, or just sort of leave them there, or what we want to do with them, really.
I personally am +1 on deprecating them. I believe there are a couple of people who disagree.
I'm +1 too.
How much stuff do we break if we deprecate them? I mean, we're not removing them right away, right? We're just warning people that we're going to remove them.
Yeah, so we don't break anything yet.
Yeah, so I mean, I am not against deprecation. That's let's put that first. Realistically, though, like if we are never gonna take it away, no, like what's the point? I think
The point is saying bugs in this aren't an immediate concern.
yeah, I guess that is that's and people should probably move to have to use some userland thing that does the same. So, yeah.
So basically, in the docs, we're marking them as deprecated. That's essentially what we mean, right?
Yeah, but we're also using util.deprecate to print a warning when people require them, or when they first use them.
I mean, that just sounds like annoying. I don't know, and I don't know. I'd like to know how many modules.
It's supposed to be. It's supposed to be annoying to get you to remove it from your code.
Well, but it's not always your code, right? Like it's going to be in the dependency of somebody else's dependency, and you've got to get like 4 people to agree to update in order to take it.
Well, yeah, I mean, that, like npm itself freaking spit out an FS warning for deprecation for a long time, and it wasn't until people kept complaining that npm finally got it fixed. There's a reason it does that.
But we don't always do that though. Like so we have things that is deprecated, but we don't warn about it. Like so basically we already have 2 levels of deprecation.
So what do we have there besides domains? Because the only reason we did that for domains, if I recall, was because we don't have an alternative for them.
That's true.
No, we did the same thing for sys when you import the sys module. We did warn for a while, and then we tried to take it out, and then we backed out of both.
That was hilarious.
It should be noted that Isaacs has a module that does all the utilities functions. It's already on npm.
Yeah, what's more, I think most people use something like Lodash or what have you, underscore, and I suspect that very few people actually use the core functions because, let's face it, they're not that great.
Well, so can we have like staged deprecations where we mark in the docs this is deprecated. We tell people in message in like the next major release, hey, this is deprecated, and then we have a major release cycle before we start warning people and annoying them. So we give them a chance to update like in the meantime before we're like being really, really annoying about it.
Sounds fine to me.
Yep. It might be good to note too that people can turn off deprecation notices from the command line.
Oh, it seems to be a bad.
Yeah, who added that
line
feature?
option?
That's
I just wanted to say that we are not solving the original issues that Michael you have mentioned. So basically, you say that people often don't have a control over the code that actually is using deprecated functions. So if you will put this in docs, it doesn't mean that these old or stale modules will update. So basically,
so actually,
we just
what I wonder about, what if we had an option that turned on deprecation warnings for these soft deprecated things so that people who wanted to be future-proof could opt into them, and then they could be like, oh, hey, I'm using a library that's using something that's deprecated. Let me go start the process of bugging them on their issue tracker now in time for the next release.
But will people actually do that?
I don't think anybody's going to do that.
It feels like you run ESLint, you run this deprecation thing, code health. I don't know.
I wish we lived in a world where people did that. Like I would love, like if people did do that, I would hug each and every single one of them, and I think I'll be able to because there'll be 4 people.
We could as well add 5 deprecation stages, just to be sure. Yeah.
This also, I should mention, this is one of those issues where I would love like some of the data that Chris has been working on to tell us like how many people actually are using this in the ecosystem and how deep that goes.
I could probably tell you, if I ran it on all of NPM, I could probably tell you how many people are using these. I'll just get some anecdotal data right now.
Awesome.
So I would think, like in this particular case, we need a better strategy for moving things out of core. Because the only thing, the reason we want to deprecate it is because we cannot agree on like a way to fix it, or it's not even that broken. It's like only slightly broken, but even that slight improvement is a big problem for us because it will affect all Node users. People cannot choose which core modules they use, and so what we want to do is like not it not being core. So I wonder if there are any ideas to make this better. Like what if we could say that if you install a module called util, it will take precedence over what's built into Node, for example. So that way people can, we don't have to break their code, but we can just say, well, all the fixes go in npm, and you have to explicitly ask for a newer version. Version diversity help that we're seeing. Yeah, maybe that's true.
I mean, I think that what you're talking about is actually much better than trying to version core APIs. Because like what happens with version core APIs is that we're going to end up shipping multiple versions of the APIs. Like it's actually worse. But what you're saying actually makes a lot of sense, where we can essentially say, hey, we want to get rid of this module in core, so we're going to hit this flag, and now it's going to do the regular lookup that everybody else, that all other modules do. So it's going to pull a util module out of npm, basically. If you install it, but if not, it's going to give you the old core one, and that's the path to upgrade and improve that. And hopefully, like, we can push people enough to just like now require that and put it in their dependencies. And with the data that we're getting out of npm from Chris, like, we actually know like how many people that we would break finally if we can remove it someday.
Yeah. I also thought that on the front end side of things, there was also some. I don't know where that ended up, but there were some talks about versioning DOM APIs, because like they basically have to solve the same problems. Yeah, maybe Dominic knows. I don't know.
Yeah, no, nobody versions APIs anymore. I mean, yeah, it's not going to happen. It has to be backwards compatible. They try and fix bugs and remove warts by like adding use counters and saying, hey, 0.00001% of people use this horrible, outdated DOM2 API. Let's kill it. But that's all.
I believe it was related to like the ES6 module spec, like where like new features would basically be imported somehow, and you would also specify versions when you did that.
I mean, the problem is nobody really wants to ship multiple versions of a feature into the browser. Like no vendors really are excited about doing that. So. And that's what we'd have to do in core too, right? We'd have to ship, util at 1, util at 2.
When I imagine like the compromise the W3C would have to make to get this in, I just imagine every function being like at the end of it just having version 0.015 like all spelled out in camel case. Okay, all right. So I think that we're pretty much agreed on this. Are we kind of enough to punt it again? We're going to mark it in the docs, but not annoy people yet. Is that what we need?
Fine. Yeah, sounds good.
Sounds good.
Okay, cool. All right. Last item on the agenda, or items, I guess, is stuff about the dev policy that me and James Snell have been editing. James much more than me over the last couple days. So Jeremiah and Chris have been really deep into like going over every single line of it. So I guess I'll let them talk about their impressions so far.
Well, for a start, it's looking pretty good, the dev policy we have up there. I'm not sure how many people here have looked at it yet. I know that Chris and Dominic have.
It's looking good to me thus far. There was some specifics around what kind of majors and minors, or what kind of like ES6 features would cause what kind of Semver bumps that we're still sort of working out, and a little bit of issue workflow that I think it's generally like it's on the right path, but there's like a little bit of working out differences between how Joint Node does things and how we've been doing things historically. So specifically around like using priority tags, basically things to funnel things down for fewer contributors to do work on versus just adding more contributors.
There's also discussion of using, or if like we should use something like the So Node has like this Jenkins task that does PR merge and CI task in one. So it runs the CI first to make sure everything, and then it gets all the right metadata. There's a discussion if we should use that rather than like having people actually push commits to master also.
So honestly, anything that prevents things from getting into master that turn builds red would be pretty awesome.
Yeah, I agree. Like, so I haven't reviewed this like Jenkins accept pull request thing, but it looks like we might want to use something like that as well. I think Ben has also spoken in favor of that. He suggested another tool. So yeah, I'm good with that. There were some other things though. Some things about labeling issues that I don't really care about, and one of the most interesting things there was that the proposal was to merge io.js basically at merge a node io.js back at version 2.0, which is fine with me, but I wonder what the point is of releasing node 0.14, because as far as I can tell, not so much has been going on toward that end, and there is I am not.
Wait, I just got really confused. You said two things. You said something about 2.0 and then something about 0.14.
Oh, sorry. So if you look at that PR, there's like basically James drew a graph where you see like the point where Node forked or io.js forked from Node, and so from that point there's like io.js 1.0, 1.1, 1.2, etc. And Node.js, which has like 0.12 and then 0.14, and then after that point, after some version of io.js and Node 0.14, the projects would merge back. But I wonder if we should do it like after Node 0.12. Maybe this is actually a discussion we should have tomorrow, by the way.
Yeah, so I think actually the intention there is just to have a nice illustration of how to go. In order to do that, you have to use the current version numbers. But like me and James actually talked about this when we were writing it up, and what it essentially is that like the next, like wherever we're at in both projects, we're just going to jump to 2.0. And then we'll keep around the old lines in LTS for both projects. So if we end up doing a 2.0 before the merger happens, we'll actually go to 3.0 rather than 2.0. So we're not holding up us, and we're also not holding up Node.js from doing 14.
Why would the merger be a major version bump? Does it introduce backwards incompatible changes?
Well, one, it's good for messaging. Two, there will be a bunch of code that does happen in the merger. And three, like we're floating a patch against V8 right now that we're waiting on a major version bump for, and a bunch of other stuff on a major version bump. So
okay, yeah, as long as we actually do make the backwards, like as long as we
no, we're gonna make the best of it for sure. We're not gonna waste a major version bump on just being nothing, right?
Good.
Yeah. But I don't think that they were explicitly saying, hey, we're going to wait to merge until 0.14 is done, or we're going to merge 0.14 just right away in order to get to 3.0 or whatever. It was just the illustration is just trying to show like what the current work is happening.
Well, okay. Yeah, okay, so sorry, maybe there was confusion on my end. Anyway, like in general, the thing looks really good to me. So I think at our sort of meeting tomorrow together with Node, well, maybe we can discuss some of the details. So far, I'm pretty happy.
Yeah, and I think like if you look at the issue prioritization thread, I think everybody's kind of come around to the way that we do things for current release lines, and we'll probably people want to probably use some kind of prioritization around LTS releases. I think that's where that's going. So, just a quick update. Okay, cool. So yeah, there's a call tomorrow, that y'all are on, and it'll even we'll post the audio public after it happens. It's like a GoToMeeting thing where we'll discuss all of this. But between now and then, please try to look over the policy and get anything that you want on the agenda and in the issue tracker for the dev policy. Cool. All right. Any last issues or concerns? Anybody?
I have one, I think. Isaac is officially still part of the TC, but he doesn't show up anymore at TC meetings, or is, as far as I know, involved at all. What do we do when a DC member goes AWOL?
Well, first of all, he's been on vacation for like 2 weeks, and we in the month before that we canceled 2 meetings, and both times he was like, "Hey, you guys, where are you? I'm ready for this meeting." So, and then he was busy for the other two or whatever. But he's also not really doing any work on IO right now. So I mean, like technically, like we can vote him out if we need to, or we can just ask like, "Hey, do you still actually want to be on this?" Which he'll probably say like, "No, I'm too busy."
Well, I did it actually last week, and he said, "Well, um, I said I don't know actually. He said I'm on vacation right now, but I'm looking to transition to something more advisory in the future." That was not so clear, but like we'll probably get back to that. Um, when he's back. So in that sense, yeah, it's like it. I noticed the same, but and we'll do something about it. But like, I would not suggest throwing him off right now or next.
Oh no, it's not that there's no urgency, but
No, but I agree with the
I have a
general
suggestion.
idea that at least if you are on the TC, you should make some effort to participate in this like very boring meeting or this very interesting meeting. But
I have a suggestion. What if when the TC member doesn't show up, his vote is getting divided by 2? So after one meeting, it's 0.5, and then it's 0.25. And once the person starts visiting the meetings, it gets multiplied by 2.
This sounds impossible to keep track of.
exactly, I think your connection had also some exponential backoff going on there. But, yeah, we can. Well, I mean that sounds really complicated, but somewhat interesting. When are you back in San Francisco, Fedor? Well, never mind.
I don't know.
So here's the thing. I'm not gonna talk about that. Never mind. Sorry for the noise.
Okay, so I know so we're getting close to the end of the hour, but there was one more thing on the agenda I wanted to make sure we didn't miss, which was brought up recently, which is the required dot.
Oh yeah, I must have missed that. Oh no. So what it was brought up in the required dot stuff was brought up in the dev policy, right? We were talking about it there.
Well, I mean, it was tangentially used as an example somewhere.
Right,
I
right.
thought it was a TC issue, although it seems to be deleted from the agenda now. I'm confused.
No, it's in there. I see it in there.
I think it was on there. Yeah.
Oh, it was. Oh yeah, I guess it went away. I don't know. Did Jeremiah remember it? Maybe I don't know. Here. Is it not this one? But yeah, so the required dot, like, basically the question was, if we knew the impact of that change, would we have done a major or minor on it? And I said I think that we probably would have done a major if we would have known the impact it would have.
If we would have done a major, we wouldn't have merged it because the API is locked, and it's only patch level releases or patch level fixes for module.
That being said, the thing that actually breaks is a fairly arcane workflow from something that I believe is an undocumented feature.
Yeah, but I'm not very sympathetic to that argument. I mean, we're breaking someone's workflow. It used to work. Like Chris said, it's a locked API, and we broke it. So something needs to be done.
I don't think that's fair. Like, I don't think you can say that because every change is backwards incompatible to somebody, right? So you have to draw the line somewhere, and the question is this on one side of the line or the other? Right? You know, changing the error message is backwards incompatible if somebody's parsing the error messages.
That is the concern. I mean, I think the workflow that they had too is something that if they have access to Node path to put their module into that, then they could and they were running node path equals this path node require dot. They were ending up with it requiring that one module from node path, which it seems to me you could just run node require that one module in the first place, if that makes sense. Like, it seems like the workaround is fairly straightforward versus fixing what was basically a bug in the require implementation.
It feels like messing with node path at all almost is like internal. Like you're messing around with internal.
I mean, I've always heard that node path is like deprecated, and I don't know if that's something we want to start throwing a warning for. It seems like very bad practice.
I did.
It is deprecated. So warning about using it wouldn't be a bad idea. But circling back to the issue at hand, so I understand that a certain person who shall not be named is already using the new require syntax, and as such, reverting it is not an option. So the two options we do have, as far as I know, are one, adding a hack that checks for node path, and if it's set in the environment, well, I don't know exactly what the pull request does, but it does something that makes it work. And the other is, well, basically to keep on trucking, to do nothing, and just tell people that use node path in this way, sorry, you're out of luck.
Right. Well, yeah. I am somewhat sympathetic to adding the hack, but I would say we should then remove the hack again and like also be very explicit about it. In like if we ever do a major version bump, like I mean like that require dot thing was really a fix, and but you know we have to say yeah it breaks things, so it would be nice to allow people to continue using it for a while. Like it, you know, having this basically having it break unexpectedly, that is probably where we went wrong. So if we add a hack and a warning, that sounds like the most elegant way to go forward.
So I agree. Like I think, yeah, hack and a warning makes a lot of sense. And I don't think we did anything wrong on the information we had available. And I think, you know, it's kind of purely bonus if we also accommodate your 0.001% use case. You know, and it's a good thing. We should be nice. But I think it's yeah, and we should add a warning and probably try and kill node path in 3.x or something like that.
Anyone else?
Nope, I'm good. All right, 2 on the dot. We're good. All right, good talking. See everybody tomorrow on the other call.
Do we like look if there's any like stuff going on in the RC channel? I think that was the plan.
Oh yeah, that's right. We said that we were going to do that. I don't have RC up. Hold on.
I'm looking for it. It doesn't really look like it. So.
Okay.
Bradley Mack is
nope.
Nope. Too bad. Oh, we can wait for
Okay.
1 minute.
Mm-hmm.
You want to see? Oh, here. This is what I mean, I made this a long time ago. I just made it work again. This is what I want for our CI status dashboard. Does my screen share work?
Yeah, worked great.
Teams work. Okay. So
That's
here's
very pretty.
So well, it's not that pretty, and actually, but what you can see here, let me guide you through it. What you can see here on the left is basically CI test runs, and this would ideally be just the git commit history. It's not exactly that right now. It's just all the Jenkins runs in reverse chronological order, and this is node 010 by the way, because they have tap enabled, which io.js doesn't have currently. But what this dashboard does is it groups tests that fail or pass together. So there's basically a large group of tests you can see here, 627 tests that always pass, or you know, and on some platforms they basically don't run. Apparently the node CI is pretty broken at this point. But then here you can see like a group of tests of 5 things, and I think it's all debugger tests actually that fail, that pass on Linux, but always like consistently fail on SmartOS. And then at the end, there's some like test that's sometimes fail and sometimes pass, and I think those are like flaky ones. And as you can see, for example, in the let me see where that's going on. So this particular test TLS cipher list is like it only run once on like the after the newest test run, and before that it never run. So probably that was like a new test. So those are all things that you can pretty easily see with this dashboard. And I'm trying to get this working for Node, and hopefully, or for io.js, sorry, and hopefully we can have TAP to make that possible. Anyway, that was it for today.
Sorry, I just realized trying to minute the node path discussion. Do we want to start warning for any use of node path, or do we want to do that in 2x and only warn about this hacky case in 1x, or what?
Probably the hacky case in 1x, and then any use in 2x.
That makes sense to me. Okay, I'll minute that so we get it down.
I agree with Chris. And we can be very like explicit, like, hey, you're using the required dot trick, but we want to take it away from you. So, but we made it work because we are such nice people, but we will not do that forever. you know.
Maybe
instead
slightly less wordy.
Yeah, like Ben, I know you are the king of saying little, so don't do that.
Okay.
All right, I think we're done, right?
Yep. Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Goodbye.